Hello everyone, good evening. How are you all feeling today? Welcome to my session. Let's wait for about 2-3 minutes. Let everyone join in and then let's continue. All right, let's wait for 2-3 minutes. Then let's start today's session. Let's wait for 2-3 minutes. Keeping these points in mind and the advantages in mind, I strongly recommend and encourage you to become part of the Plus platform of Unacademy as soon as possible in order to enhance and accelerate your preparation for the CA Foundation and intermediate examinations. All right. Then, in the previous slide, you heard me say a lot: live and recorded special classes, live and recorded plus courses, right? So where do you get it? You get it on an app known as the Unacademy Learning App. And for all of you who have downloaded the Unacademy Learning App and are using it, I thank you very much and I request your support in the future as well. And for those of you who have not yet downloaded the Unacademy Learning App, I request you to go to the Play Store on your mobile phone, download the Unacademy Learning App, install it on your phones, use your mobile number where you will get an OTP, and using that OTP you can register on the Unacademy Learning App. It is as simple as that, with no complicated or lengthy procedures. Okay, I have downloaded the Unacademy Learning App. I have just give me a second. I have downloaded the Unacademy Learning App. I've installed it. So what next? So let me tell you that the Unacademy Learning App gives you access to all the live and recorded special classes and also all the live and recorded plus courses that Unacademy has to offer to you in order to help you accelerate and enhance your preparation for the CA Foundation and intermediate examination. So please go ahead, download and install the Unacademy Learning App on your mobile phone so that you can make use of the world of resources. Is the premium platform of Unacademy, which is a payment-based subscription model and which provides various subscription packages for the various examinations. Accordingly, the subscription packages for the CA Foundation and intermediate examination provided by the Plus platform of Unacademy are as follows. The packages provided are for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months and 24 months. The 1 month package costs you about 3,500 rupees. The 3 month package costs you about 8,750. The 6 months package costs you 14,000. The 12 months package costs you about 17,500. And the 24 months package costs you about 21,000 rupees. Now please remember, all these are the listed price of your packages. So before you make the payment for the package of your choice, please do not forget to use the code Prathik to get an instant discount of 10% on the above listed price. I repeat, please do not forget to use the code Prathik to get an instant discount on the above listed price. The after discount price of the various packages are as follows. The 1 month package will cost you rupees 3,150. The 3 months package will cost you rupees 7,875. The 6 months package will cost you rupees 12,600. The 12 months package will cost you rupees 15,750, and the 24 months package will cost you rupees 18,900. So you see immediately you're getting a savings of 10% when you use my code Prathik. Now I personally recommend you to start off with the 12 months or 24 months packages for two reasons. Firstly, it is cost effective. If you compare the 1 month package cost with the per month cost of the 12 months and 24 months package, you see you will get a great cost savings almost immediately. And secondly, and most importantly, since the CA Foundation and intermediate subscription packages courses are provided to you in one package, which is 12 months or 24 months, a 12 months package or a 24 months package will be highly beneficial to you because it covers the duration of both your courses, that is the CA Foundation and intermediate, which normally take a minimum of about 12 months for you to prepare and clear. So if you're getting a package that is 12 months or 24 months, covering the duration of both your courses, CA Foundation and intermediate, at a very cost-effective price, I think that is a very good deal. But having said this, you're free to choose the package of your choice. And before you make the payment, please do not forget to use the code Prathik to get an instant discount of 10% on the above listed price. You can also make use of the no-cost EMI option available for the 6 months, 12 months and 24 months subscription, just in case you do not wish to make the payment at one shot. And the payment options available are internet banking, debit card and credit card. And also all the coins that you accumulated by watching the special classes can be redeemed by making while making the payment for the plus course. So keeping all these advantages in mind, the packages in mind, I strongly recommend and request you to become a part of the Plus platform of Unacademy as soon as possible in order to accelerate and enhance your preparation for the CA Foundation and intermediate examinations. Right, let's proceed. Now, like I told you, the Unacademy Learning App gives you access to all the live and recorded special classes. Here are the snapshots of few of the many special classes that I have conducted on the Unacademy Learning App. There are special classes on revision test paper, sale of goods, Indian Contracts Act, Companies Act, fundamentals of accounting, retirement of partner, admission of partner, death of partner, revision of inventories, revision on final accounts of entities, revision on sale of goods or approval or return basis, and many more sessions. So please log into the Unacademy Learning App, go to my profile Prathik Gupta, and please start making use of all the hundreds of hours of sessions that I've done exclusively for your benefit. Okay? And here are the links to few of the many special classes that I have conducted on the Unacademy Learning App. You can either click on these links or copy and paste these the links on your browser to take you directly to my special class on the Unacademy Learning App. The special classes are on Indian Contracts Act, Sale of Goods Act, Indian Partnership Act, Limited Liability Partnership Act, Companies Act, Basics of Communication, Accounting Concepts, and Revision Test Papers, among many more other sessions. Alright, so please go ahead and make use of them, and after going through them, in case you have any questions or queries, you can always come back to me. Now, this is the schedule for the next 2 or 3 days. This is a complete thing or cover-up of business and commercial knowledge. Okay, this will be important for your Jan 2021 attempt as well as your May 2021 attempt. We are currently here. Okay, this is completed, this is completed, this is completed, we are here. Okay, and we've got another 2 or 3 more sessions on this. So let's start off. All right, government policies for business growth. Okay, now what are we discussing here before we get into the topic? Okay, what are we discussing here? Can anyone tell me? Now we are discussing about business and commercial knowledge, right? Now business and commercial knowledge means we also have to look at a company overview. We have to look at the business environment, that is the external environment and the internal environment that covers the business and decides how it is done and things like that, right? So now what do you mean by government policies and growth of business? Please remember, a business works in a business environment. Let it be any business. It does not work in isolation. So there is an internal environment and there is an external environment. Okay. Now, internal environment comprises of employees, management, management, and other people working in the company. External environment is external to the company, that is your customers, your vendors, your government, your banks, and other things, and all the social environment. All those components of the environment that affect the company externally. So one of the factors of the external environment is government policies. Okay, now please remember, in any country there is a government which takes care of the administration of the country, administration and management of the country, right? So they keep framing and making new policies from time to time in order to take care of the business and in order to take care of their people. So those are known as government policies. So remember, a government policy, whenever it is made by the government, it has an impact on the business. It could have a positive impact, it could have a negative impact, because please remember, you cannot please everyone, you cannot make everyone happy. So it is not like one policy fits all. So one policy might be suitable for someone, might not be suitable for someone. So in this topic, what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about how government policies impact the business working. Okay, let's take an example to begin with. Raman was a computer science graduate and he developed an app-based solution for blind students. Okay, so Raman was a techie. He was a great techie graduate and developed an app-based solution for blind students. Ali, his friend, was a CA rank holder. Ali had 3 offers from 2 big audit firms and from a consulting company. Raman understands technology, but he does not know finance, law, government policies. On the other hand, okay, so now Raman was a techie. He knows everything about technology and the product, whereas Ali does not know anything about technology, but he knows about the regulatory and the financial impacts of various policies, government policies. So he does not know finance, law, and government policies. On the other hand, Ali has no exposure to technology, but he understands patent law, IPR, that is intellectual property rights, GST formalities, financial reporting, and corporate governance issues. Ali understands the commercial possibilities of Raman's innovation. They form a team to pitch for arranging funds from venture capitalists. Okay, so now this was a deadly combination. Raman is a techie, so he developed the product, but beyond the product, he knows nothing about how to pitch it, how to finance it, how to develop it, how to protect it from this thing. So this thing Ali knew. So both of them partnered together and they decided to form a team to pitch for arranging funds from the venture capitalists. Venture capitalists are people who fund early bird projects. Legal processes, tax policies, business restrictions, financial reporting of any nation follows from government policy. Naturally, government policies are like sine qua for all spheres of the economy, not only the business startups by young entrepreneurs like Raman and Ali, but also the large-scale enterprises and multinational corporations are impacted by government policies. So what we see here, the government policies not only impact the small or the startups like Ali and Raman, but even the big companies, let's say the Infosys, the Tatas, the Wipros, the Reliance, everything, all of them these are huge corporations, and all of them are also impacted by the government policies. So that makes government policies one of the most important aspect of your external business environment that affects business houses. Okay, please take 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Take about a minute or two. Any questions, please ask. All right, take another minute. Any questions, please ask me. Okay, now let's look at some few more examples of what you mean by government policies. In Bangladesh, as a state policy, import of second-hand foreign cars is allowed. Toyota steers the policy to their favor. Second-hand Toyota cars are sold in numbers through Toyota-approved dealers in Dhaka. Refurbished cars collected from buyback scheme are sold in the Dhaka market. Toyota manages several service stations in the city of Dhaka, Chittagong and Rajshahi to provide after-sales service. Okay. On the contrary, in India, as a government policy, no foreign car manufacturers are allowed to sell imported cars. They need to form a wholly owned Indian subsidiary or be a part of a joint venture. Toyota manufactures cars in India as a joint venture with Kirloskar Motors. So see the difference of government policies. Like for example, in Bangladesh, the government policies allow you to import second-hand cars, foreign cars, and directly sell it to the customers. So Toyota took advantage of this government policy, and they've set up various centers there that deal in second-hand pre-used Toyota cars. Okay, and because they are selling pre-used Toyota cars in the country of Bangladesh, or cities of Bangladesh, they also have set up various service stations in the city of Dhaka, Chittagong and Rajshahi. So they get a double income. One is by selling the second-hand and refurbished cars, and then obviously the cars are sold, they need to be serviced as well, right? So for that service, they provide again in the cities of Dhaka, Chittagong and Rajshahi, and then they earn money there. Now let's come to India. In India, no foreign car manufacturer can directly sell cars in India. So in India, no car manufacturer is allowed to directly come open an outlet and sell cars. Instead, they need to form a wholly owned Indian subsidiary or be a part of a joint venture. Joint venture is when two or more people join together for a common objective. Toyota manufactures cars in India as a joint venture with Kirloskar Motors. So Toyota, in order to sell cars in India, manufactures cars in India through a joint venture in India with Kirloskar Motors. Okay, so that now you see the difference between this government policy and this government policy. So this government policy benefits the external people who are working with the just one sec. Just give me a second, please. Sorry. Okay, so this policy, government policy benefits the external people, the external car manufacturers to be to benefited, but in this policy in India benefits the local economy of India. They are supposed to form a domestic joint venture or a wholly owned subsidiary, and only then it can work. So these are a few examples of government policies. Let's go further. For example, a heavy vehicle manufacturer Volvo, who makes trucks, aspires to follow the policy of treating everyone with respect. They aspire to foster an inclusive culture where everyone can contribute to their full potential and can be accepted for who they are, regardless of gender identity, nationality, ethnic origin, religion, age, sexual orientation, any disabilities, etc. However, the gender equality process are not similar in all countries. Thus, it becomes difficult to accomplish this aspiration. So again, heavy vehicle manufacturer wants, he has a certain vision and mission, but that again becomes a little difficult to achieve, but that's his aspiration nonetheless. Please take 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions? Please ask me. Any questions? Please ask me. Please take 2 more minutes. Take your time, read it carefully. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions? Anyone? Please take another minute. Go through this carefully. Let me know once you're done, please. Are we done? Okay, now let's look at the policy framework in India. How does the government policy framework work in India? A historical sketch. Let's go back and see how from the ancient time the policy works in India. In India, a lot of discourses, researches and experiments on public policies used universities of Takshashila, Vaishali and Nalanda. During the time of Emperor Chandragupta Maurya, the great intellectual guru of the Emperor Chanakya, outlined the public policy of the state. So even at the time of Chandragupta Maurya, his subject or his intellectual guru, Chanakya, outlined the public policy of the state. He authored the book Arthashastra, a conceptual framework of statecraft and public policy. In Greek states and Roman Empire, public policy was center of attraction. Philosophers like Plato and Aristotle had a number of discourses on public policy. During the time when Ashoka the Great ruled Magad, he introduced the policy of peace and harmony. So there we see again, here there was a public policy, right? Now what was the public policy? Of peace and harmony. On the other hand, Guptas defined various policies on taxes, trade and warfare. In Delhi Sultanate, Alauddin Khilji introduced a stringent tax reform, whereas during the time of Akbar the Great, land reforms were introduced under the leadership of Todarmal. In all the reforms of governance, be it oligarchic, monarchy, aristocracy, tyranny, or democracy, the public policies were formulated and implemented. Please remember, even from the ancient times. Now, speaking from Chandragupta Maurya, we are speaking from Plato, Aristotle, Ashoka the Great, Alauddin Khilji, Akbar the Great. So, even from that time onwards, the concept of public policy is placed in the governance. So, that has been coming from the ancient times. All right, please take about 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Any questions? Please ask me. Please take another minute or so. Go through it carefully. Any questions? Please ask me. Tax, lower interest, and moderate exchange rate. Please take a minute, go through this. Any questions? Please ask me. Anyone, any questions? Please ask me. Take a minute. Anyone, any questions? Please ask. Take a minute. Let me know once you're done, please. Any questions? Please ask. Hi Kasim, how are you? Welcome to the session. Okay, let's proceed. Now, it is important to mention a caveat here. A caveat means the terms and conditions. The impact of macro variables on business is contingent upon a host of factors. Now, let me tell you that all these 5 factors, GDP, inflation, tax, interest, and exchange rate cannot work in isolation. Okay, and also you cannot assume that if you are focusing on lower tax rates, this will be constant, this will be constant, this will be constant. Please remember, a combination of all 4 keep changing from time to time. Okay, and we need to focus on all of them together and what is their impact on the businesses as whole. Okay, so here we see the impact of macro variables on business is contingent upon a host of factors, including a host of non-economic factors such as political, legal, socio-cultural institutions. So along with these 5 policy indicators, there are a lot of non-economic factors such as political, legal. That means what is your political situation in the country, what is the legal situation, the social and the cultural backgrounds that is working in your country. All these also impact the businesses. In economics, it is almost imperative to hold other things constant while assessing the impact of one variable of an economy. Like I told you, if you focus on any one variable of this, it's rather difficult for you to assume that the others are going to remain constant. That means if you're focusing on lower tax, we cannot confidently say that the interest will be lower, the inflation will be moderate, or the exchange will be moderate. If you're focusing on lower tax, maybe the inflation will go up, or maybe the interest rates will go up, or exchange rates will go up. So this is a very dynamic environment and things keep changing. Okay. For example, if moderately low exchange rate can help an economy, the other countries may resort to retaliatory exchange regimes and thereby neutralize the country's advantage. Moderate inflation stimulates business more so if it is caused by increase in demand. A cost push inflation, even moderate, may not be much conducive. Likewise, lower rate of interest may not by themselves be adequate in attracting investment in cases other conditions of demand and supply are conducive. Thus, the underlying causal factor, presence of other enabling factors on demand and supply side, complementary socio-cultural institutions, and above all, overarching consumptions given other things constant mediate in the social impact of macroeconomic variables. So here we see that given, we always keep saying given other things constant, but this is a very rare scenario. Normally you cannot assume that all the other factors will remain constant and you focus only on one scenario. All of them work together. Okay, so if all of them give you the ideal results, then that will be the ideal result on the businesses. But if you're focusing on the interest and the other four factors go haywire, then it does not serve the purpose at all. Not the least, there is always a time lag between calibration, recalibration of a macroeconomic variable and its impact. Calibration, recalibration simply means tuning and retuning of the variable component. There is always a time lag between calibration, recalibration of a macroeconomic variable and its impact. Alright, please take 2 minutes, go through this, and then we proceed. Hi Kasim, how are you? Welcome to the session. Nice to see you. Please take 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions, please ask. Any questions, please ask. Any questions? Any questions, please ask. Okay. Policy formulation and impact transmission. Now, what do you mean by policy formulation and impact transmission? Let's have a look. Okay. It has been seen the government policies are drawn not in closed chambers but in view of the developmental aspirations of the nations. So what this means, normally when the government makes policies, it does not make it in closed drawers or in isolation. It does so in the view of developmental aspirations of the nation and the best interest of the nation. The ultimate responsibility for policy formulation lies with the concerned ministry. The ministry in turn functions through committees, commissions and institutions. At the ground level, the recourse is taken to a wider consultative and participative process of engagement with the stakeholders. The draft policies are put in the public domain for comments, critique and suggestions. The policies thus framed are then implemented and their impact is felt. There can be several ways of implementing the policies. For example, the Reserve Bank of India is the institution to implement government's money and credit policy. It has several instruments such as bank rate to influence the supply of money and credit. The volume and cost of money and credit exerts its influence through the interest rates in the market. Thus, broadly, the policy influences get transmitted through institutions and instruments and the concerned markets where business operates. So this simply means how the policies are formulated in the thing. So the first, like I said, the government does not formulate policies in closed doors. That means without considering other impacts. It does so in the interest of the nation and that keeping in mind the developmental aspirations of the nation. The ultimate responsibility for policy formulation lies with the concerned ministry. That is, whichever ministry is making the policy for that, it depends on that. The ministry in turn functions through committees, commissions, institutions. So they prepare a draft bill and they take the comments of all the stakeholders, that is the people who it is directly going to impact, and they incorporate it wherever they find it necessary, and then they release a draft for comments, critique and suggestions. The policies thus framed are then implemented and their impact is felt. There can be several ways of implementing the policies. For example, Reserve Bank of India is an institution to implement government's money policy and credit policy. It has several instruments such as bank rate to influence the supply and credit of money. So whenever the banks raise the interest, that means they want to curb the supply of money into the economy. And whenever they reduce the interest rates, that means they want to pump in more money into the economy. The volume and cost of money and credit exerts its influence through the interest rates in the money market. Thus, broadly, the policy influences get transmitted through institutions and instruments and the concerned markets where business operate. Okay, please take about 2 minutes, go through this, and then we proceed. Any questions, please ask me. Okay, please take about a minute more. Any questions, please ask. Take a minute more. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. All right. Types of government policies by intended impact. Okay, so now let's look at the normal kind of policies, government policies that the government tries to implement, and what are their impact. From the perspective of their impact on business, we may categorize government policies into 4 policies: protective policies, restrictive policies, regulative policies, and facilitative or developmental policies. So from the perspective of their impact on business, we may categorize government policies into 4: protective policies, restrictive policies, regulative policies, facilitative or developmental policies. Now let's look at each of them in detail. Protective policies aim to provide protection to the businesses so that these may sustain themselves and grow. For example, economic policies during mid-50s to 80s restricted the entry of multinational corporations in India so that the Indian firms grew in this protective environment. So like we saw that India got independence in 1947, and 1950 we got the constitution, and then we got the industrial policy in 1951. Right? So that policy was protective. That policy was aimed at protecting the local economy and the local firms by restricting the entry of multinational corporations into India, or the huge corporations of India. So the whole idea was to protect the domestic market. So that is what you mean by protective policies. All right, please take 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions, please ask. Any questions? Now let's look at what do you mean by restrictive policies. Restrictive policies put a curb on business growth, lest it should become detrimental to the interests of the consumers and public at large. So, as the name says, restrictive policies are restricting certain business practices. For example, growth of a firm into a monopoly or a dominant position might endow it with economic power such that it may exploit consumers with imposing on them higher price or compromise on quality. In India, the erstwhile Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act sought to check concentration of economic power in a few hands. The act was subsequently repealed, and now the Competition Commission of India looks into these aspects. So, like the name says, restrictive policies were made to curb certain business practices and to protect the consumers and public at large. That means an example was when it appears to the government that any company or any body is going to become a monopoly and may dictate terms and take unfair advantage, then it might come out with certain policies that will protect the consumers and public at large. In India, the erstwhile Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act sought to check concentration of economic powers in a few hands. The act was subsequently repealed, and now the Competition Commission of India looks into these aspects. Regulatory policies. Okay, so we've spoken about protective policies, we've spoken about restrictive policies. Now let's look at what do you mean by regulatory policies. While the freedom to carry on business is fundamental, yet, like coordination and control over traffic, rules of the game must be set. Clearly, such policies aim at putting in place an institutional setup for the organized functioning of the relevant activity or market. Basically, a regulatory check on that industry or that sector, like an IRDA or the Banking Regulation Act, which like the Banking Regulation Act keeps in check all the banking companies. The IRDA keeps in check all. Any questions? Please ask. Okay, let me know once you're done, please. Any questions, please ask me. Take a minute more. Any questions, please ask me. Okay. In a still broader sense, we need to interpret government policies, business interface in terms of the easing of business and business facilitation. That is how permissive, supportive, promotional, and developmental oriented are the government policies for stimulating, supporting, and sustaining greater business activity. So, we just saw the four kind of policies which normally the government enacts in order to help the business environment. That is protective, restrictive, facilitative, as well as regulatory. Okay, it's all for the benefit of the business at large. In this context, the scope of the interface between government policies and business growth is extended to such government policies as those pertaining to augment civic infrastructure, utilities such as electricity and water, development of industrial corridors, towns and estates, and easing of their access by simplification of the procedures for obtaining permissions and clearance. These are all facilitating policies, okay, to make things easier, like how Mr. Narendra Modi right now is saying ease of doing a business in India. So he's creating a lot of policies which he intends to make the process of doing business in India very easy and smooth. All right, please take a minute, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask me. Let me know once you're done, please. Okay, now let's look at the economic change process. What is the economic change process? The economic change ushered in 1991, we spoke about it earlier, right? In 1991, the economic policy of the government changed. It became more liberalized and more privatized. Apart from internal liberalization to re-regulation, it sought to alter the structure of the Indian economy by increasing the scope of private and foreign capital. Until then, until the mid 80s and 1950s, it was majorly dominated by the public sector enterprises, which changed in the 1990s, where liberalization, privatization, and globalization came into the picture. So let's look at each of them. Liberalization. Liberalization means to remove or loosen restrictions, right? So liberalization means to become liberal or to become flexible. This happens via dismantling of licensing and permitting permits, deregulation, easing of approvals, and systematic loosening of legislative and administrative controls over business. We have already noted that the policy regime prior to 1990 was characterized by a host of restrictions on private sector. While it is debatable whether these restrictions were relevant at the time they were imposed at the first place, these restrictions certainly seem to have outlined their utility. Okay. These restrictions included the reservation of a sizable number of industries for public sector, the requirement for obtaining licenses for capacity installation and augmentation, and reservation of items for exclusive manufacture for small scale industries. Okay, now initially what had happened when from 50s till the 1980s, it was all dominated by the public sector undertaking. So very not naturally the major thing was the public sector enterprises. So at that time there were a lot of restrictive policies. That means there were certain industries only which could be operated by public sector undertakings and not by private sector undertakings, and so some businesses were only to be carried out by public sector undertakings and not. So slowly that thing was eased out so that the private players could get into it and they could also provide those services. So that is what we meant by liberalization. Please take a minute, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Anyone, any questions, please ask. Okay, please take a minute, let me know. Hi Himanshi, how are you? Are we done? Can we proceed? Please let me know in case you have any questions as well. Please ask me. Yes, anyone, any questions? Shall we proceed? Does anyone have any questions? All right. Now, liberalization may be defined as a systematic process of the enlargement and enhancement of the freedom of the private sector and in the economy. So, liberalization means more and more public sectors were eased and more private players or the private companies were allowed to get into the economy. Starting with manufacturing and then services, infrastructure, and even the strategic sectors such as defense production, one has seen a systematic creation of greater opportunities. So that means initially manufacturing, infrastructure, and defense production was all under the private sector undertakings, but with liberalization, it all gave an opportunity for people in the private sector to enter these industries also. That is the manufacturing, services, infrastructure, and even defense production. Okay, so that was the result of liberalization. The winds of change, industrial liberalization in India. How did it happen? The list of industries reserved solely for the public sector, which used to cover 18 industries. So initially, in the 1950s to 1980s, there were about 18 industries which were specifically reserved for the public sector undertakings. What were those? Including iron and steel, heavy plant and machinery, telecommunications, telecom equipment, minerals, oil mining, air transport services, and electricity generation and distribution. Now, all these were reserved for the public sector undertakings, but slowly with liberalization, it opened the doors to the private sector players as well. Okay, and this has been drastically reduced. So the 18 has been reduced to three. One is defense aircrafts and warships, atomic energy generation, and railway transport. So these three still remain under the public sector undertakings. No private players are allowed to get into this. Industrial licensing by the government has been almost abolished, except for a few hazardous and environmentally sensitive industries such as alcohol, cigarettes, industrial explosives, aerospace, drugs, and pharmaceuticals. So here we see the result of liberalization. Okay, please take a minute or two, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Let me know once you're done as well. Any questions, please ask. Any questions, please ask me. Let me know once you're done, please. Any questions, please ask. Let me know once you're done, please. Please read it carefully. Are we done? Okay, just about 10 more seconds and then we proceed. Any questions, please ask me. Okay, the requirement that investments by large industrial houses needed a separate clearance under the Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act is to discourage the concentration of economic power was abolished. So again, this was a restrictive government policy, and the act itself is to be replaced by a new competition law which will attempt to regulate anti-competitive behavior in other ways. So initially, the requirement that investments by large industrial houses needed a separate clearance under the Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act to discourage the concentration of economic power was abolished. This was done in order so that the other players also could enter the market and the public and other people are not exploited. Okay, and the act itself is to be replaced by a new competition law which will attempt to regulate the anti-competitive behavior in other ways. Indian industrial scenario has also been characterized by a long-standing policy of reserving production of certain items for the small-scale sector. About 800 items were covered by this policy since the late 1970s, which meant that investment in plant and machinery in any individual unit producing these items could not exceed the prescribed ceiling, thus limiting their scalability. Many of the reserved items such as garments, shoes and toys had high export potential, and the failure to permit development of production units with more modern equipment and a larger scale of production severely restricted India's export competitiveness. As a result, there has been a phased de-reservation of items to unleash the growth potential of the promising industries. Alright, so see, there were a lot of restrictions, there were a lot of policies and all that which later were revamped or done away with so that the business in the Indian economy could develop. Okay, please take 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Take about a minute more. Any questions? जी जयप्रकाश, फाउंडेशन के लिए है आपका बिजनेस एंड कमर्शियल नॉलेज. यस, बिल्कुल. Okay, take about a minute more. Let me know once you're done and then we proceed. Please read it carefully. All right, most welcome, Jayaprakash. Any questions? Please ask. Okay, now liberalization. We are still talking about liberalization. Liberalization has resulted in the opening of a host of new industrial sectors for private enterprise. Earlier, these were not open to private enterprises, but liberalization opened the gate for private enterprises to also enter into those domains that were dominated by the public sector undertakings that were hitherto exclusive to state monopolies. State monopolies means public sector undertakings. Moreover, doing away with industrial licensing meant ease of entry for the new players in various industries, an opportunity for expansion to the existing players. In fact, in most cases, liberalization meant greater freedom not only for domestic private sector but also for foreign direct investment and trade. As a result, various industries have undergone a virtual metamorphosis. Metamorphosis means a major dramatic change. Notably, among these have been the banking, insurance, telecom, automobile, consumer durable, and even FMCG. Please remember, earlier there used to be a few public sector bankings, but with introduction of liberalization and privatization, today there are a lot of banks from whom you can choose. Then insurance, earlier we just had life insurance corporation. Today we have so many options with insurance as well. All right, because of the privatization and liberalization. So ultimately, who's benefited from this? The end consumer or the customer has benefited, because please remember, whenever there is competition, it is always better for the consumer, as all the players or all the businesses are supposed to improve their services and products. Automobile, consumer durable, and even FMCG, fast moving consumer goods sector. We have also seen transformation in the retail sector with the emergence of shopping malls and e-commerce. Okay, so this is all to do with the liberalization. Please take about a minute, go through this, and then we proceed. Any questions, please ask me. Anyone, any questions, please ask. Let me know once you're done, please. Are we done? Any questions? Okay. Let's move to what is privatization. So we discussed about liberalization. That means liberalization of the various policies. Okay, that means easing it out. Now let's look at privatization. Privatization as a strategy had been experimented in the Western world a decade earlier than experimented in India. During the prime ministership of Mrs. Margaret Thatcher, British coal mines were privatized. Many of the components of national healthcare services and school education services were privatized. Privatization refers to a managerial approach of changing the ownership structure of one or more government-owned institutions. Privatization can be advantageous in terms of higher flexibility and scope of innovation it offers, along with cost savings many a times. However, it has an adverse impact on the employee morale and generates fear of dislocation or termination. It looks for accountability and quality in production and service system. Privatization can be successful if diligent scrutiny by the decision makers is attached to the policy concern. Now, privatization simply means of change of ownership or control. That means from a government ownership thing, you're getting it into a private thing. It has got advantages and disadvantages. What are the advantages? You get better service, you get better flexibility, along with cost savings. But the disadvantages is for the employees. The employees do not have a job security, because in the private sector, there is no job security, right? The company can give you a 2 or 3 months notice and they can fire you. But in the public sector undertakings, normally it is not done. So it looks for accountability and quality in production and service system. Privatization can be successful if diligent scrutiny by the decision makers is attached to the policy concerned. Okay, so this is an introduction about the privatization. Please take about a minute, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Anyone, any questions? Please let me know once you're done, please. Let me know once you're done. Any questions, please ask me. Let me know once you're done, please. Okay. In the Indian context, privatization effort was not easy. There were hardly any takers for loss-making public sector undertakings. On the other hand, there had been many takers for surplus-making industries like oil drilling and refinery companies, or the ones in mineral extracting sectors like Steel Authority of India Limited, National Mineral Development Corporations, etc. The government decided to privatize the loss-making companies fully and the profit-making ones and banks partially. The effort of privatization was accepted by the society with a lot of resistance during the inception of economic liberalization in the nation in the 90s. Okay, it was not an easy thing for privatization, as the public did not accept it very easily. Privatization helps in a big way to enhance market potencies by enhancing efficiency, quality, and competitiveness. Privatization is an essentially effective tool for rapid restructuring and reforming the public sector undertakings. In India, also, witness in other nations, public sector entities remained inefficient as far as profitability and quality is concerned. They were running without a significant aim and mission. The private sector, on the other hand, is perceived to be more self-motivated, prolific, and reliable for superior quality of products and services, though there are exceptions. Okay, so privatization, even though it was done, it was not an easy task. It required quite a lot of work, okay, because it had to be accepted by a lot of people. Please take about a minute or two, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Let me know once you're done. Okay, take about a minute more. Any questions, please ask me. Are we done? Any questions, please ask. Are we done? Take about 30 seconds more, then we proceed. Any questions, please ask. Okay. Privatization may be conceptualized in the following prominent types. First one is delegation. Government keeps hold of responsibility and private enterprise handles fully or partly the delivery of products and services. So now we are talking about the various kinds of privatization. First one is delegation. The government will continue to hold the responsibility and private enterprises handle fully or partly the delivery of product and services. There is active involvement by government. Delegation may happen through contract, franchisee, grant, etc. Divestment. Government surrenders partial ownership. So the first one is delegation, where the government continues to hold the ownership but only delegates a part of the work to the private sector. But in divestment, government surrenders partial ownership and responsibility and sells the major stake to one or more private entities in the course of time. That means their ownership, their shares, their shareholding, it reduces and it offloads it to a private player. Displacement. The private enterprises expands and gradually displaces the government entity. Deregulation facilities privatization if it enables private sector to challenge a government monopoly. The government monopoly through BSNL and MTNL has been displaced by the private sector. So earlier, when the phones, we had just BSNL and MTNL all over India. If you remember the old days, the kids of 80s and 90s will remember the landline where you dial the round dial and other things. Those were mostly provided by MTNL and BSNL. Now the private sector has outgrown the public sector. Disinvestment, selling a proportion of ownership stake in the public enterprises to private parties. So these are the 4 ways in which privatization is normally done. Okay, please take a minute, go through this. Any questions, please ask. Anyone, any questions, please ask. And let me know once you're done, please. Let me know once you're done. Take 2 minutes, go through this carefully, and then we proceed. Let me know once all of you are done, please. Take about a minute more. Any questions, please ask me. Okay. Now, inward foreign direct investment in India, IFDI, foreign direct investment, as we say, FDI, plays a very important role in the process of development of a nation. In most of the cases, capital source for domestic sources remain inadequate for the purpose of overall development of the nation. Foreign capital is seen as an harbinger of growth. In a sense, it is like filling in the gaps between domestic savings and investment. In the post-liberalization and privatization period, India was considered a lucrative place of FDI inflow because of its huge domestic market. Now, what is FDI? FDI means foreign direct investment. Now, please remember, whenever a company wants to grow, okay, a private sector, public sector, anything, it needs money. So money from a local or a domestic source is very limited. There is very limited sources that you can. How much can you borrow from banks? How much can the promoters of the company put in money, right? So at those times you really require a foreign direct investment. That means external entities or a person abroad, they invest into your company directly and they give you large sums of money in order to help you grow. So that is what you mean by FDI. For a closed economy, any national program of privatization for its success needs a successful move towards globalization. Globalization creates a wide market of goods and services. At the same time, foreign funds flow in an economy to be invested in various industries. Foreign funding is good sense, creates employment as well as demand. For a steady flow in foreign funds, liberalization of economy is required. Liberalization is always paired with regulations. Okay, so now again with liberalization and privatization, FDI came in because as long as the public sector undertakings were dominant, there could not be any FDI flows into the country. So with privatization came in FDIs as well. Okay, and that pumped in money into the economy. Foreign direct investments may be described as a flow of capital investment to an enterprise in a nation by another enterprise located in a different nation by capturing a majority stake in ownership in a company in the target country or by expanding operations of an existing business in the country. So it simply means investors are in another country, the business is in India, and from the other country they put in money into our country. That is what you mean by foreign direct investments. Okay, please take 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Take about a minute. Any questions? Please ask. Excuse me. Yeah. Please take a minute. Any questions, please ask me. Okay. Permission for foreign direct investment (FDI) is not uniform for all sectors. It depends on each sector. See, I think initially insurance was opened up, then airline industry was opened up. All these were first under the public sector domination. Slowly, FDI was included in insurance sector 49%, and the aviation sector in India as well. Some sectors are opened up for 100%, and in other some sectors it is allowed only up to 26%, 49%, or 51%. So it depends on sector to sector. It is not fixed. Foreign direct investments has always remained a bone of contention in FDI in multi-brand retail, defense, etc. are classic examples. It is often felt that areas like media and defense could compromise on India's security interest, and hence no FDI should be permitted. In certain areas, the FDI limit has been capped, like the insurance business, where there is no approval through an automatic route. The company concerned has to seek permission from Foreign Investment Promotion Board, or FIBP, PB as we call it. Okay, so see, for an FDI, firstly you need to look at the sector, then you need to look at the cap, that is what percentage of FDI is allowed, and then whether it is approval is there under the automatic route or the manual route. If the approval is in the automatic route, you can directly take the investment FDI into that company, but if it is not in the automatic route, then the company concerned has to seek permission from Foreign Investment Promotion Board, that is called FIPB. Here are a few sectors where FDI is prohibited under both the government route as well as the automatic route. Atomic energy, it is only government. Lottery business, only government again. See, gambling and betting, government again. Business of chit fund, as again government, and Nidhi company. Okay, so there is no FDI allowed in these industries specifically. Okay, please take 2 minutes, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions, please ask. Any questions? All right. Then agricultural excluding floriculture, horticulture, development of seeds, animal husbandry, pisciculture and cultivation of vegetables, mushrooms under controlled conditions, and services related to agro and allied sectors, and plantation activities other than tea plantations. Housing and real estate business except development of township, construction of residential and commercial premises, roads or bridges to the extent specified, trading in transferable development rights, manufacture of cigars, cheroots, cigar oils, and the cigarettes of tobacco or of tobacco substitutes. India has been prominent destination for FDI flows. India generally receives FDI from US, Britain, Singapore, Japan, and the USA. So these 9 areas are specifically prohibited. Okay, and other than that, India can get FDI subject to the ceilings and the automatic or government rule. And India generally receives FDI from US, Britain, Singapore, Japan, and the USA. Please take 2 minutes, go through this, and then we proceed. Any question? Please ask. Any questions? Please ask. All right. Any questions? Please ask. Any questions? Please ask. Please take a minute or two. Any questions? Please ask. Any questions? Please ask. Okay, foreign institutional investors. Now, in the last slide, we saw FDI. Now, let's look at foreign institutional investors, that is FII. We often come across the term FIIs, which represent the foreign institutional investors. FIIs are large foreign groups with substantial investable funds. FIIs are registered abroad with a view to investing in other nations, to invest in equity market, hedge funds, pension funds, and mutual funds. FIIs have strong research team and which speculate to invest in a country with a possibility of strong return. So they do it. So FIIs are normally they who invest in other countries or I think basically to earn profits in the market. FIIs have strong research team which speculate to invest in a country with a possibility of strong return in equity market. These funds park their funds to fuel a bullish market. Naturally, for small period, the nation experience inflow of strong foreign currency in its financial system. Whenever the market reaches a peak and starts declining thereafter, these funds move to another nation. So the euphoria is short-lived. No wonder national governments look for sustainable FDI investments over FII investments. Okay, because it is short term. Okay, so this is about foreign institutional investors. Please take about a minute, go through this. Any questions, please ask me. Any questions? Please ask. Anyone, any questions? Please ask. Take a minute more. Okay. Investment from India abroad, OFDI. Policy of globalization has favored India not only in terms of inward FDI but also in terms of outward FDI or OFDI. In that is, FDI means from outside into India, and OFDI means from India abroad. Indian firms invest abroad too. For example, in February 2020, Bharti Airtel invested USD 978.92 million in its wholly owned subsidiary in Mauritius. In November 2019, PVR Cinemas, a leading multiplex chain, launched its first property in Sri Lanka, marking its first international venture. And in August 2019, Sun Pharma entered into a licensing agreement with China System Medical Holdings to develop and commercialize 7 generic products in mainland China. Data released by the Reserve Bank of India show that investments by Indian firms in foreign countries in India in Jan 2020 rose by nearly 40% to USD 2.1 billion on a yearly basis. Okay, so like we discussed, FDI is from abroad into India. FII is again from abroad into India, but into the equity markets and the investments. And OFDI is from India to abroad. So India to abroad, they also invest. Okay, so please take about a minute, go through this, and then we proceed. Any questions, please ask. All right, any questions, please ask me. Take about a minute. Okay, so if you're done with this, that's the end of government policies under business and commercial knowledge. Thank you so much. Please do not forget to use the code Prathik to get an instant discount of 10% on when you subscribe for the Plus platform of Unacademy. And thank you for being a wonderful audience. It was a pleasure to take this session for you. I will see you tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. with another topic under business and commercial knowledge. Thank you so much, and until we meet again, take care. Good night.